The Adventures of Minnie Palmer. Oh, I've been working cleaning litter all the whole day long. Oh, hi second graders, I didn't see you there. So, Mrs. Palmer says it's Earth Week and tomorrow is Earth Day, so I came to this dump here. Look at all this trash. Whoo! And I've just been working to clear the clutter, so will you help me out? Will you let me know when I've shoveled a piece of junk free? I'm going to try to launch them through the air. Just yell out the word if I get something launched through the air. Thanks so much. Whew, back to the grind.
Plunge. Range. Hinge. Lodge. Large. Change. Barge. Page. Cage.
Woo! I don't think I can do any more work. I've been working cleaning litter all the whole day long.
Good morning, boys and girls. Happy Tuesday. Today our book is called What is Space Junk by Todd Swartling. And the interesting thing about this book is it's Earth Week for us, so we're going to be talking about cleaning up planet Earth, making the Earth more beautiful like Miss Rumphius. But also, did you know that there is a litter problem in outer space too, not just here on Earth? So let's go ahead and find out more about that. I'm going to be pointing out nonfiction text features as we go along. So, what's space junk? Space exploration is one of humankind's most amazing accomplishments. But did you know this exploration is making a big mess up there? It's leaving behind tiny bits of rocket shells, whole satellites, and many, many other objects. All the non-working things humans have left in orbit around Earth is called space junk, and it's becoming a problem. Since people began exploring space in the 1950s, there have been over 5,000 launches. These created more than 500,000 pieces of space junk. Out of this world. So we've got a sidebar here. Title, bold words. In 2008, an astronaut dropped a bag of tools outside the International Space Station. People on Earth could see it with binoculars. Can you imagine looking in binoculars and you see some tools floating by in the sky? And here's the captions. Each dot in this picture is an object orbiting Earth. It's pretty messy out there. Space junk is sometimes called orbital debris, and this is a metal chunk from rocket fuel. What's the big deal? When scientists are planning to launch a spacecraft, they have to find a path that avoids hitting space junk. With hundreds of thousands of pieces scattered all around Earth, you can imagine it's a hard job. All these pieces of space junk are flying around Earth at speeds of up to 17,500 miles per hour. Crashing into a flake of paint traveling that fast would feel like getting hit by a grizzly bear moving 60 miles per hour. Out of this world. Scientists keep track of about 23,000 pieces of space junk, but there are millions more too small to track. And this caption says, look what a small object moving at a high speed can do. Remember, caption is a sentence or word about the picture. Look at that huge dent it made in this piece of metal. Where is all this junk? Before scientists can plan a safe path for launch, they need to know where the space junk will be. They track it using telescopes and radar. Objects as small as a golf ball can be tracked in low Earth orbit, which is from 110 to 1,200 miles above Earth. Objects in high Earth orbit, more than 22,235 miles up, have to be over 3 feet wide to track. Out of this world. Satellites in high Earth orbit move about as fast as Earth spins, so they're always over the same point on Earth. This is called geosynchronous orbit. Look at that. You can use it to sound out words. Huge antennas, such as this one, use radar to track space junk. Early space junk. Years ago, talking to someone across the ocean required long wires under the water, and communication didn't work if something happened to the wires. Scientists found another way using radio waves, but these could be interrupted by the sun's energy. In the 1960s, scientists put millions of needle-sized wires in low Earth orbit to act as a giant space antenna. It was called Project Westford. It aided traveling radio waves, but created a lot of space junk. Out of this world. The wires of Project Westford were supposed to fall back to Earth after a few years, but many are still up there. So it says this photo shows part of one of the satellites that carried copper needles into space. And these are some Project Westford needles that did fall back to Earth. You can see how big they are next to a postage stamp. The Big Sky Theory. For years, scientists didn't think much of leaving things in space like the Westford needles. They thought space was so big that they'd never see their space junk again. This idea is called the Big Sky Theory. However, in the 1970s, scientists at NASA, which means National Aeronautics and Space Administration, began working on rules to stop space junk from building up. The rules covered what could be left in space and what couldn't. By 2008, most countries followed similar rules. Here's the sidebar again. Out of this world. NASA's Orbital Debris Program Office is located in Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Here are our captions. So here's Johnson Space Center, kind of a little map here of it from above. And the European Space Agency tracks space junk from its operations center in Germany. The new plan for old satellites. When a satellite in low Earth orbit gets old, scientists use up its fuel to slow it. Then it falls from orbit and burns up in the atmosphere, which is the mix of gases that surround the planet. It's aimed at an area of the Pacific Ocean in case any bits reach the surface. This area is called Spacecraft Cemetery. Satellites in high Earth orbit are pushed farther away so they aren't near active satellites. They're placed in a graveyard orbit about 22,400 miles above Earth. And here is a map. We've got a map in this nonfiction book showing us where Spacecraft Cemetery is. And this view from above the North Pole shows orbiting space junk. A graveyard orbit would be a little farther than the outer ring of the space junk. What happens to space junk? Gravity is always trying to pull orbiting objects down to Earth. When gravity finally pulls something into the atmosphere, friction heats it up. Space junk can get so hot that it burns up before reaching Earth. Objects larger than 4 inches don't completely burn, however. It's common for one to hit Earth every day. But don't worry about getting smashed by space junk, though. Earth is mostly covered in water. So far, there have been no reports of people getting hurt by space junk. Out of this world. When parts of NASA's Skylab space station crashed in Australia, the United States received a $400 fine for littering in the town of Esperance. And here's our captions. The top one, this is what it looks like when something burns up in Earth's atmosphere. And the bottom is a fuel tank from a spacecraft that fell out of the sky. How much is out there? Since 1957, about 7,500 satellites have been launched into orbit around Earth. They're used for communication or scientific studies. There are about 4,300 satellites up there right now, but less than 1/3 are still working. The rest are space junk. When 2 pieces of space junk crash into each other, they break apart. This creates thousands of new pieces of junk. Scientists think there have been over 290 of these kinds of space junk crashes so far. That explains why there's so much debris. Out of this world. The combined weight of the man-made objects orbiting Earth is more than 8,200 tons. And here's the caption. Vanguard 1 is the oldest satellite that's still orbiting Earth. It has been up there since 1958. Wow. A satellite in shining armor. The best way for a spacecraft to deal with space junk is to avoid it. If that can't happen, the next best thing is for it to have a shield or a covering that keeps it safe. Many spacecraft use shields made of many layers of thin metal sheets. All those layers break up any space junk that hits the shield before it can hit the inner spacecraft. Sometimes there's also a blanket of tough cloth between the metal sheets. This shield has just gone through testing on Earth. The hole was caused by a 0.3-inch bullet moving 14,400 miles per hour. Wow. Smashed satellites. No amount of shielding could protect a satellite from what happened in 2009. Two satellites, Iridium 33 and Cosmos 2251, crashed into each other at about 26,000 miles per hour. Before the crash, Iridium 33 was still working, but Cosmos 2251 had been shut down in 1995. It was the first time a working satellite was destroyed by another satellite by mistake. After the crash, scientists found more than 3,200 new pieces of space junk. The pieces formed a ring around Earth that's still there. And the caption says, almost half the space junk from the crash of Iridium 33, shown here, and Cosmos 2251 is still in space. More destruction. The Iridium 33 and Cosmos 2251 crash was an accident, but another satellite was blown up on purpose. In 2007, scientists in China wanted to test a way to destroy a satellite. A Chinese weather satellite called Fenghuan 1C was chosen. The test succeeded and Fenghuan 1C was destroyed. However, it created more than 2,600 pieces of space junk. Objects from this explosion are spread around low Earth orbit. This explosion holds the record for the most space junk produced from one event. Here's the sidebar out of this world. Some of the space junk from Fenghuan 1C got very close to the International Space Station. At least once a year, the ISS has to move out of the way of approaching objects. Now, here's a great thing in a nonfiction book, a graph. So who puts the most junk in space? The United States does at 3,999 pieces, followed by Russia, 3,961, China, 3,475, and Europe, the ESA, at only 134 pieces. Cleaning up. Now, before I read this, I want you to pause the video right now. Knowing the thousands of pieces of space junk are out there, how do you think the world should clean this up? So pause and discuss with your family how they could get the space junk out of space. All right, welcome back to the book, Cleaning Up. Scientists have come up with ways to fix the space junk problem. One idea is to aim the sun's energy at pieces to burn them up. Another plan is to catch space junk with a net and pull it down. Other scientists want to put a laser in the International Space Station so it can shoot space junk that gets too close. None of these plans have happened yet because they cost a lot of money. And this right here is the International Space Station. The European Space Agency is planning to launch the first cleanup spacecraft in 2023. It may use a robotic arm or a net as pictured. So the net would just grab debris. Too much clutter. About 3,000 tons of space junk still remain in Earth's orbit. That's about the weight of 1,500 cars. If we don't start cleaning up, we might not be able to launch spacecraft or send important messages across the world by satellite. Space junk makes work in and around the International Space Station dangerous for astronauts too. The cleanup must begin soon. Will you be the scientist who invents the best way of cleaning up space? Out of this world. NASA's Orbital Degree Program Office set a new goal. 25 years after a satellite stops working, it should burn up in the atmosphere. The future of space exploration is in danger because of this space junk. All right, I hope you enjoyed this book. Think of ways how could you clean up space junk. You will have noticed that I emailed out to your parents a fluency passage this morning. Everyone has their personalized level. And what needs to happen today is you get timed 1 minute reading it. I would do it 2 or 3 times for sure. Circle where you end up each time, and remember the numbers along the side help you count how many words you read. So see how much improvement you can make over 3 reads. And if you didn't print it out, that's okay. Just write down your number that you read on a piece of paper, and the goal is to beat your record each time.